So I'd like to start, as others have, by acknowledging the traditional owners of the land on which we meet and paying my respects to elders past, present and future. And same as Nick did earlier, I think it's a really important starting point for what we're talking about. Um, I'm Steve Hartley. I'm the Executive Director of a new area within the Department of Planning, Industry and Environment. Um, it's a new division, it's a new grouping of people, it's a new functionality for the department. And it's deliberately titled as Green and Resilient Places. We are taking on that mantle, trying to build off and work with the work that people in this room have been doing and actually embed that in the planning system. Did I feel guilty? Yes. Am I in a place that I can make change? Yes, as you all are as well. And hence the acknowledgement country can mean so many things, but in this context, one of the things personally I think is so important, we as humans are not particularly good at making longer term decisions. To recognize the land on which we meet has been in ownership and custodianship for so long, sets us up for how do we think about what we're trying to do into the future. So it is something that personally means a lot to me and I think has a really strong connection. Um, I am very lucky in the role that I do. I am lucky to be charged with delivering one of the 14 Premier's priorities. Each term of government, the Premier sets a number of priorities for the state, and state government agencies have to take those priorities very seriously. They are amazing enablers. We were very lucky with this set of priorities to the Premier set. One, which is to increase tree canopy and green cover across Greater Sydney and plant 1 million trees by 2022. I know that sounds, yep, okay, that's what everyone in the room is charged with. But as I say, the opportunity to utilise a Premier's priority to work together, to change behaviour, to change business as usual, cannot be understated. So what are we doing with that opportunity we've been given? So me and my team, some of which are here today, we've been talking to people like Beck, we've been reaching out, we've gone, had a look at what other people have done, we're trying to learn and work with as many people as possible. We've got 6 project streams that we're looking at. People here probably are aware of the 5 million tree program. A number of councils in the room would have participated in the 2018-19 grants round. We're looking at how do we use collaboration through financial mechanisms like grants, like partnerships, to change behaviour, to deliver on some of those things we've talked about. Sean from Fraser's earlier talked about that tipping point. The financials is important. We're refreshing the grants program and there will be a new grants program out, or grants rounds offered shortly, as there will be with industry and community partnering. Really important. Again, stealing Beck's thunder, the ability to work together. None of us, and if you think back to the earlier in the day in Rod Simpson's diagram of the connected parts of the system, none of us can deliver the change that we're after individually. Planning system has a lot of control, but so does local council, so does private sector, so does capital markets, and the list goes on. So we're really looking at how do we partner with industry and community. Why do I feel guilty? I'm here representing the Department of Planning. You've seen some of the outcomes of the planning system in the previous presentation. There is real scope, and I get that all the time I go out and I expect that some of the questions will be on that same front. The planning system is either not the enabler it should be or is a blocker of good environmental outcome. So we're looking at policy and regulatory reform. I think it was Rod also that put up a slide that's from 2020 Green Places and Green Spaces, Better Places, the rebadge. 12% of people don't want what we're doing. 12% of people would rather walk away and think, actually, and validly think there's things that are more important to them. Now, I think it was Rod that said they're lost to us, or to paraphrase. But actually, that leaves a large chunk of people that if we can work with, if we can mobilise, if we can make life easier and we can work out what their needs are, you've got a massive part of society that can actually get behind this movement. Part of that movement is got to be driven by government. So one of the major things we're looking at is what action can government take itself. New South Wales government's the largest employer in New South Wales and single employer in Australia. We have massive ability with our purchasing power and the rules that we set for ourselves to change business as usual. We're also looking, everyone wants an urban forest strategy. 30 of the 33 councils in Greater Sydney actually have some form of canopy protection urban strategy anyway. We would like to leverage off that and work with you to really bring that to the fore. And how for Greater Sydney do you meet that Greater Sydney Commission target of 40% canopy coverage by 2036? So I've talked a little bit about the work that we've got underway. In 2018-19, this is just to give a bit of a flavour, we gave out $5.7 million worth of grants to 20 councils across Greater Sydney. We've funded a whole bunch of really interesting work, really all aimed specifically at how do you change the experience that people have? How do you improve, whether it's heat, connectivity, biodiversity, how do you use that tree planting, tree maintenance behaviour to improve outcomes for people on the ground? We've done demonstration projects. We've looked at how do you re-green suburbs. We've looked at how do you work and encourage people to actually take action and get that community cohesion by working together to improve things like canopy outcomes. What we're doing is also looking at the way we act as government. I think one of the most powerful things is having a Premier's priority means that I get to go and meet with really important people across government and tell them what I'd like them to do. I've had meetings with heads of agencies. I've had meetings with some very senior people in infrastructure agencies and been able to have a conversation about why is it that your tree replacement ratios when you do new roads or road upgrades, why can't we make them higher? Where does your asset management budget sit in terms of maintaining canopy? How does your behaviour when you're an infrastructure agency affect the local community and how you're engaging with the local community to make sure where you've had an impact, you're actually able to flip that and provide a positive outcome, grey as well as green infrastructure. So the Premier's priority has been fantastic in some of those conversations with big infrastructure agencies to change the way government is acting. I was at the Environment Officers Network, I think late last year, Council Environment Officers Network late last year, and I gave a bit of a talk on, in much more detail than this, on some of the work that we're doing. And it was fantastic. We went straight to questions, and I think I stood there for about half an hour and heard every single point, probably not all of them, about where the planning system is failing, where the planning system is not enabling the outcomes that most people in this room have been talking about. That's from as simple as why did you change the vegetation SEP to remove tree preservation orders and the replacement clause, to as big as how does DCP, LEP, local strategic planning statements and the broader infrastructure policies fit together to get a whole place-based outcome. We're taking, and I'm very interested here, I'm happy to chat in the break or after, we really, really want to get to understand your lived experiences with your frustrations in the planning system. I think there's, as part of the Premier's priority, one of the areas we're looking at is policy and regulatory reform. I think there's two major areas for reform. That's going to sound funny. I think there's short term and long term. There's massive change you could make everywhere. What I'm really interested is hearing all about that and then sorting it through to see what could we do as a Department of Planning in the short term to change outcomes immediately, and what other things could we do? Legislative change in action. Someone I was talking to earlier today said, not within my power, but you need to create a new ministry for green infrastructure. Longer term suggestions about how do you change the dial in the system. That is part of the remit under the Premier's priority, and it's something we're very, very interested in. As every, I think Rod said it, collaboration, other speakers have said it, Beck reinforced it. We can't do this by ourselves. So whilst I'm very, very interested to hear about those things in the planning system that aren't working from your perspective, I'm also really, really interested to know how can we support you better? The conversation, I think, has actually improved across state, local council, and private sector and community. If I think back to, I've worked in the environmental industry for 15 or 20 years. If I think back to some of the initial conversations and discussions that I was involved in, to the ability to have those nuanced discussions around the complexity of the system and where do you have different interventions to change things, that's us working together. They're sometimes hard conversations, but I think they're very, very valid. So one of the partnerships we've just launched, for example, is we're working with Landcare New South Wales. We recognise that as state government, sometimes we're a bit on the nose. Hey, we're from government and we're here to help. What we do recognise as well, though, is that you guys have a lot of connections in your local community and with people who do take action and people who want change. So Landcare is a good example of a partnership we've just signed where we are working with Landcare New South Wales to really look at where to plant, how to plant, what to plant, fund additional planting, how do we work better with local communities. It's just one of a number of an example of one of a number of partnerships we're striking up. I'm very interested in ideas about how, again, we can work with you better. I think the challenge for all of us is really, no last slide. I think the challenge for all of us is there is a lot of really goodwill. We've heard about a lot of really good examples today. To recognize what is it within our power, but what is it that's in someone else's power that we know, and how do we work together? What can I change and what can you change so that we can collectively deliver? And from my perspective, the increase in canopy and green cover across Greater Sydney is clearly my focus. But how do we work together for me to do that, for you to do what you're doing, for others to achieve what they're after? I look forward to some good questions. Thank you.